But I've noticed, like you said, that all your protests stay very peaceful. And that has to be by intention.
Yeah, it is by intention, because you know, even the few weeks ago we had that protest, and I knew that it was, like they said in the paper, like 3,000 people in downtown Athens. And no matter how angry I am, or how sad I am, or how frustrated I am, I understand that the people, I have a responsibility as a leader, and I don't want to see people get hurt. I can't tell people how to protest. I don't put people down for how they protest, because I understand where the frustration is coming from. So it's a real strong effort and a temperament that him and I naturally have to try to maintain peace. You know what I mean? Especially in our studies, spiritual studies and stuff like that. It's like we're always looking for peace. And even as leader, we try to remain humble so that we can listen, you know, and hear people from different walks. Because the work that we do is, yes, I do not deny my blackness. I want to empower the black community, but I understand that in order for black people and brown people to truly gain equity and justice and equality, other communities have to be empathetic and their hearts have to change. And if I want people's hearts to change, I can't change it by it being violent towards them. You're not going to listen to me if I just jump on you and cuss you out, and you're not going to listen to me. So even people say things sometimes that it's like, I can't believe they just said that. But it's like I try to maintain a temperament to where they're willing to listen to me somewhat, and I'm willing to listen to them. Like, let's do this peaceful. We don't have to go this way, but we need to learn how to agree to disagree, or, you know, that type of thing. But you're not going to really change my mind, and we don't need to advance in a violent manner.
No, that was something I actually wanted to ask you. Growing up, you know, I imagine that you've been a pretty peaceful fella your whole life, like intelligent and have a heart for humanity, right? And you're not going to hate somebody who without warrant, or dislike even, I should say. I don't know if you're a guy who even would hate. What kind of experiences did you have coming up that would say jade you a little bit for your peaceful outlook towards, whether it's the police, white community, America, whoever has jaded you a little bit?
It wasn't always a peaceful outlook, because I actually grew up with people who lived during sharecropping and times like that. So these stories was very fresh in our minds. And, and then in the marginalized communities I grew up in, the only time we saw white people was to cut lights off or to evict somebody, or, you know, different things like that. So my environment, no matter how peaceful I was showing me some things to formulate some feelings and opinions that, you know what I'm saying, that was outside of myself. And so there was a period where I was angry, you know, about the struggle that my grandmother, her father, all these elders that I knew, you know, and down to the point my family knew the sharecropping family that they lived on their land and sharecropped for, like, and so it really took me just living life, having kids, different things like that, and trials and error, to where I could see, like, I have been chased by a group of black guys before. I've been chased in a town in West Virginia by a mob of white guys before. Historically, Democrats and Republicans have all given us the shaft for as my people.
You know what I'm saying?
So when you're in a position like that, whereas there's almost like everywhere you turn, there's been wrong, you know, done to you, you have to look for something deeper. And I would just say it was my spirituality, and, you know, being able to see humanity as one and myself as a part of everything, that gave me that compassion, you know, to have friends now that look like people that ran me out of town in West Virginia, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, it's compassion, man. It's compassion. You have to find it within yourself to not take an experience with one person and demonize a whole race based off of that experience. Like, you have to know that all those things exist within every race, every gender, and you have to just try to deal with like-minded people and people who are on your, you know, your level.
Y'all started Athens Anti-Discrimination Group, and what made y'all start it?
Basically, it started off because we were already in town throwing events for maybe 3 years, an incident happened downtown where General Bogarts was trying to print up a menu at the print shop, and had a drink on there called the Niggerita. And one of the workers in the print shop leaked it to the press, so the public started seeing what was going on with that. And we were sitting back watching, wondering, you know, what kind of repercussions happen from something like that, if any, and just watching it. And at the same time, you know, and doing events for 3 years downtown, you know, like the Hip Hop Awards and just different events to try to draw diversity back downtown.
Yeah.
When we would inquire about the lack of diversity downtown from the minority community, they would always basically insinuate that they wasn't welcome downtown because of things like bars turning them away with arbitrary dress codes, saying that there's a private party, you can't come in tonight. And they've tried all type of antidotes to challenge that, like even bringing people of different races with wearing the same thing to see who would get in and who wouldn't. You know, seeing people inside with things that they were wearing and saying they wasn't allowed to come inside. So once that incident happened, there was a survey that came from UGA, student body, about all the discrimination that students were aware of that was going on downtown, and some of them experiencing, you know, and mostly minority groups.
Yeah.
So we thought it was a great time that while this information was putting out there, that the information that people that were natives of the community felt the same way and had been dealing with that even longer than the student body, which is kind of transient. You know, they had been dealing with that even longer.
Right.
And we thought it was a great time to let them know that it's not just the students that's been affected by this. It's like our peers in this town have been affected by this for years, as they tell us. And my wife wanted to do a march. You know, we had been talking about doing something like a march for years, but it wasn't anything against like anti-discrimination. It was just trying to bring the music community together. We was thinking that something like that would be great.
Yeah.
But this turned out being, you know, the ideal situation to try to get people to stand up behind. And so she started reaching out to people, and
I started reaching out to like Melissa Link. You know, at the time she was a commissioner, and that was the only commissioner that we knew of. She wasn't even my particular commissioner. She was just a commissioner that was engaged. And reaching out to other organizations, letting them know like this is going on. Y'all want to do something. And so then we organized our first protest and rally, and we decided to hold it on MLK Day of 2016, and over 500 people came. And I could remember standing out there, you know, more, you know, we were the facilitator, and we didn't want people to really know that we were behind it, you know, as in a sense, we just wanted to bring awareness to this cause. Because at the time I was thinking like, you know, I'm still thinking like the backlash, like back in the days, you know, with civil rights movement, and you know, what's going to be the backlash. So, but I felt like we had to do something, and people didn't really know us in the political community as well. So this was our best way of like trying to bring everybody together to stand on this one issue, to fight for it. But then, you know, we were the one that was behind organizing and facilitating that. We were just tired of discrimination in downtown Athens, because
And
even
period.
as
Everything that Noah just described.
if we came in here as entrepreneurs, as music. We have a music production company.
Yeah.
So we always try to have hip hop events in downtown Athens, urban, soul, and all those type of events. And we were having like hard times, even to get African Americans downtown. They were saying, "Hey, we're not wanted down there. We're harassed. We're going to get you arrested. We're not being let in the club." But we kept pushing, and you know, we didn't fully understand like the whole gist of it. We just knew that we weren't able to use certain venues. The only venues that was open to us was like Max Canada, World Famous, but there was certain venues that would give you a chance on letting you do their event there.
Right.
So we're coming from an entrepreneurial business mind state, trying to have events downtown and feel a blockage there, but still trying to move over that hurdle and not really let it, you know, stop us from what we're doing.
When you started this in 2016, you said, have you felt movement towards the positive since you started bringing light to this issue?
I would definitely say that. I mean, it's been 4 years now, and I see a lot of conversation dealing with diversity, inclusion, white privilege, how we're using those things, what's really going on downtown. there was an ordinance that was passed. It's an alcohol admittance ordinance that prevents bar owners and business owners from discriminating. So basically, they're supposed to, if you can't get in based on something you have on, that's supposed to be obviously posted at the front door or the window. If you feel like you're being discriminated against, you're able to go down to the attorney's office, the city attorney's office, and file an actual discrimination complaint. So that has been a victory from the work that we did starting in 2016. So that took only, I would say, from consistently advocating from January all the way to almost the end of 2016 is when they passed that ordinance.
Yeah.
So that was a year of advocacy and just sticking on the problem. So yeah.
Is your organization something that's financially supported by anybody, or like y'all just run it out of your own heart, your own passion type of scenario? Find
For
your
the
own
first
funds?
few years, definitely, but right now it's the people. And I wanted the people donations. Like if you donated, you're the one that's helping to keep this organization alive and the programs that we have. We don't get government funding. We don't. We might apply for a grant here and there, you know, to help with some of our programs. But we have been blessed enough to where the people within this community, based on their donations, whether it's voluntarily, their time, or financially, that's how our organization operates.
And we throw fundraisers. Like we have annual fundraisers that we throw. Other people may host fundraisers for the organization also. And being that we're an event production and marketing company, not so much music production, but event production and music type events, we use those same skills when it comes to organizing and producing fundraisers and different events like that.
Gotcha. So y'all started the most recent protest downtown, correct? Like the marches that we saw downtown?
Justice for Black Lives.
Where the whole downtown was shut off and about 3,000 people came. That's the one we organized, and then we just did a follow-up recently.
Our protest was talking about different demands. We demanded accountability, transparency. There's several things that are incorporated in our list of demands, and people are welcome to go to our website and watch that. So we were also there. So that was the second rally that we had, and then we also had one yesterday. And so we've had 3 over the past few weeks, you know, to kind of reinforce the messages that we have been pushing.
And tell me again clearly what your demands are that you're asking for.
One of them is take all officers out of the school as far as end of school to prison pipeline. One is to make sure that in the future they pass this budget without the people's input, is to make sure that in 2021 you still have a participatory budget to where people can have their voice on how, you know, the money is being divided up and spent for this community, whether it's a focus group or whatever they want to do. We also demand that there's no more tear gassing in Athens, Clarke County. They get rid of the chokeholds. We want the police advisory board to be established by August, which I'm also the co-chair of that task force that's developing the advisory board.
And it's a citizen advisory
board, so where citizens can be a part of, like helping to not only hold the police officers accountable for things that happen, but create a safe space. It's like a middle ground to where citizens can come and, you know, tell the board or complaint or whatever the case may be. Officers can say this is why they did what they did and give an explanation. So there's a group that is in between to make sure that everything is more transparent and accountable when it comes to officers, and that people feel safe if they want to make a complaint, or even if they want to say this officer did a great job. It's not just about complaining on an officer or tearing them down, but we need to find out where are the problems, because we can't fix it if we don't know what the community needs are.
Who is the sounding board now if there's a complaint?
There's our organization pretty much for as anything dealing with discrimination in town. The organization that we formed, Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, deals with those complaints right now.
Deals with those complaints. But how about like within the police force itself?
If that's a discriminatory type thing,
Yeah.
they would also reach out to us. Other than that, you have to go and file a complaint with the police department and hope that the police department internally deals with that. So the reason we're asking for that Citizens Police Review Board is so that that's a board that's kind of tied to the public, tied to the police, that people can talk to and try to get some type of antidote. But it's also there for if the police department and the police are are serving the community, and they're I would think they would want to have a team of people from the community that they can run things by and bounce things off that they're doing in the community.
Yeah.
You know, people that are actually on the ground and,
Yeah,
and living in the community.
yeah,
So
that's dealing with the issues.
It's not just to monitor the police. It's to help them have a better understanding of what the community may want, and from diverse communities.
Something that struck me is when Chief Farrell, after gassing everybody, had said one of the reasons he did it was because he didn't recognize people's faces. I found that quite striking for a guy that's been in town for a very short period of time, that he would use that as an excuse. Because quite frankly, I didn't know what he looked like until after he gassed the peaceful protesters, and I've been here for 30 years. Didn't even really know what his name was, honestly, no disrespect intended.
Yeah.
And I definitely know his name forever after he chose to gas everybody. So I like the fact that you're kind of saying that you want to make sure that they actually do know some people's faces.
Right.
That they, if you need to hear, a lot of times you'll hear throughout life that one reason in the black community is there's a lot of crime that goes unreported is because of a true fear of the police officers, right? Seems like you're trying to make a bridge for that there.
Right. I mean, even like we'll get a complaint that someone basically was arrested, right?
Yeah.
And they requested to get their the report or the body cam footage, and they haven't gotten it, or they haven't received it yet.
Right.
They felt like there was discrimination involved in this case, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So our organization will go in and request these things so that they can have access to their information, and then, you know, help them navigate how they want to move forward. This police review board would be a place to where you could.
You don't have to do this no more.
Or what?
Where we wouldn't have to do this.
I mean,
right
we
now,
don't
our
mind doing the
organization-
work,
No, because
but-
there needs to be something in place. But we feel like this
Right.
really should be, our government should have something in place like this already. You know?
Right.
And
But-
and then on top of that, it's like, you know, even with the tear gassing, why did you do the tear gassing? And there's different stories coming out. This police review board it would hold them accountable.
Yeah.
You would have to explain what happened, and people from the community could come to this board and also give their report. The board should go hash through, you know, to see what can we do to prevent this from happening again? What can we do moving forward? What is the
Yeah.
truth? What is the facts?
Yeah.
Or even before you went and tear gas people, maybe you want to talk to the review board to make sure that,
Should there be
I don't
another
know,
procedure,
it's
you
procedure or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
But our organization is advocating, because I felt like tear gassing was inappropriate. I've been in Athens, Clarke County for quite some time. We have protested dealing with extreme situations like heightened, you know, around police brutality, you know, those type of things. And no matter who comes out to these events, it's never gotten to that point where they were vandalizing stores, or there's just a brawl out fight, or that type of threat. So what information are you using to make you believe that this particular event is going to be that event after these people was out there for so long that night? So
Right.
it's just, you know, I feel like irregardless, one thing I want people to understand, because they seem to think that police officers aren't human. Like, police officers are not human.
Yeah.
Like, they cannot make mistakes.
Yeah.
If someone makes a mistake, if I make a mistake, if I run a red light and I said I didn't mean to do it, I'm still going to be held accountable for running that red light. I'm probably going to get a ticket in the mail, even if it was I'm in labor. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You have to answer to that. And it just seems like officers have no real accountability to answer to anything that they do. So I look at that, if I'm a mother and I have kids, and if I don't never try to hold them accountable for the things that they do, they're going to walk through this world and take advantage of people. They're not going to be as sensitive to you, to say what's going on with you. Or they're just going to think about them, and they're not going to care about the consequences and be able to just continuously getting away with different.
So you understand where we're coming from. Like, it's no one saying that all police officers or all people in any group are like all evil or all negative or all anything like that. But what we are saying is, when these situations do occur within these groups, including the police department, they need to be accountable, and they need to be transparent, and they definitely need to be brought up on charges if that's what anybody else would be brought up on.
Noah and Mokah, this brings to an extremely hard question for me to have to ask. Do y'all feel that the black community also has to be held accountable, like the way Mayor Bottoms did say this past week about the black on black violence that we're experiencing in places like Chicago? That is so heartbreaking for any person who's a humanitarian of heart, regardless of race, religion, etc. How do y'all believe that some accountability has to be held within the black community, and then how do you do it?
Okay.
So basically, you know, I think most educated people know that the black on black crime thing is a myth. You know, every race kills within this race.
Right.
That's definitely that's a scientific thing. That's a fact that's proven.
Right.
You know, you commit crime to people that look more familiar with you. You know.
Right.
So outside of that, if we want everybody to be accountable, we have to also look at some of the conditions that African Americans have been put in historically, and we can't act like these conditions that they've been put in don't create situations like PTSD and just all type of trauma. Yeah. We can't act like, and that's not just their responsibility, that they went through that.
Right.
So if we want this to be, you know, do we go to the mentally ill and just ask them to fix their own situation? Do we go to people that are mass murderers and just ask them to get together and fix their own situation? We are humanity. We have to look at these situations as situations that humanity have to respond to, and stop pointing the fingers and saying, you know, the Chinese created COVID, this person did that, this person's responsible for that. We all have to come together, and if we're gonna live here together, we need to pull each other up. And we don't need to be afraid to do that. Media and different things, different groups, different religions, all these different things that we want to identify with, pushes us further and further away from being human and being humane. We have to be that first, before we Democrats, before we Republicans, Christians, Jews, before we any of those other things. We have to be human. And we have to look at humanity and lift up humanity wherever it needs lifting up.
That's right.
And I will also tag on that. I'm just tired of every time black people try to advocate for liberation, it's also pointing a finger back at the black community.
Yeah.
When police were originally created, it wasn't to protect us. It was never created to protect us. How I walk through my world is different from how you walk through your world. If a police officer approaches me, he might approach you differently. You understand what I'm saying? Because of I'm being approached as if I've already committed a crime. This is how I'm being approached. Even when I go into spaces looking for a place to live, I'm not being welcomed in the sense of this is how you can get this place. It's like, no, you can't live here. So this is how black people continuously walk through America, and I really don't know how else to explain it, but you might be empathetic to a black condition, but you don't live it. Living it and feeling it is two different things. I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from Jamaica, but I would never dare act like I know what it's like for the Latin community, what they're going through right now, and act like I have the solution. Is be like, hey, my parents brought me over here. I'm fine. Why aren't you? Like, y'all just need to get your stuff together. This is how America treats each other. So in the sense of the black on black crime, yeah, black people need to empower themselves, but how much are society really letting us empower ourselves?
Because there's been historical times where we've done that, like Black Wall Street, Reconstruction period. There's been several times where we've done that, where we've been self-efficient and tried to become self-efficient. The Black Panthers, the Black Wall Street, Reconstruction period. There's been several times, and terrorist attacks come on any progress in that area because of fear that someone else is going to be left behind because of the black community is coming up.
Which is kind of about like the Tulsa riots, right? Or is that how
that's exactly what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, my wife was telling me that the black community was doing really well when they did have their own banking system and had lawyers, doctors, everything going on. That got dismantled, and then the white bankers didn't allow for the loaning of money.
Yeah.
So it's been hard to get away from that thumb. See, as a Jewish person, we face the same hatred.
Mm-hmm.
We face the same discrimination and racism, but we slide through the cracks because we do look white. Like I put brown on every census, and because I don't identify as white, but I see why people would see me as such, right? You're not going to know otherwise. If you saw my father, you would think the guy is straight up white. And so it's very easy for the Jewish people to get that bank loan, to move into that neighborhood, to make that friend, because once I was the first one that my in-laws met, I was the first Jewish person that they got to know. It's the Archie Bunker meathead situation. You can no longer hate each other. It's the George Jefferson Archie Bunker situation. You can no longer hate each other. You respect each other. And so it is a matter of everybody getting to kind of know each other, right? And part of getting to know each other is realizing where discrimination is really taking place. And realizing what the effect of having your church bombed and your 4 little girls dying means to the community, especially since there's never been any type of reconciliation for all that from the people that had the mentality that did it.
And you can't do it by telling them what they need. Like, you have to go in and ask them what they need. Because
so that's why I want to ask y'all, like, you know, you've stated some things for me very clearly, and especially with dealing with like downtown Athens. But what white people have asked me, and this has come from people that actually have doctorates and things like that, they want to know what the white community can do. That also, with the fear of knowing their jobs could potentially be on the line, so therefore they're afraid to go join an outside protest.
I mean, the biggest thing, I'm just gonna say this, like, for example, last week we were down in we was at a corny regarding to the lynchings that happened in a corny many years ago, when they brought I think it was 9 or 10 people out of the jailhouse and shot them. While we're standing out there, it was led by a white guy. He wanted to, you know, bring recognition to this and let people know this happened right here in Oconee, and this is, you know, the day that it happened many years ago. While we're standing out there, a truck drives by, revs up his engine, has an American flag on the back. I already knew what time it was, okay? I didn't say anything. Now I'm like, my whole infrastructure as a black woman, I can't stand here and be comfortable and just completely die to this event, even though he's trying to honor this. I have to watch my back now. So I navigate in a world where I always constantly have to watch my back, or I have to tighten up because I don't know what's about to happen next. They circle back around right towards the end. You know what they did? Beeped their horn again, shot the finger, said slur words out of their mouth. That hate still lives so relevant today. Just what were we doing to them? What were we doing to that truck driver? And white people need to understand that racism, the system that upholds racism and hate, it still exists, and it's inside of quite a few people, and they will cause harm to you just because you're black. They will hinder you from a job position because you're black. They will stop you from getting a housing situation because you're black. You get pulled over because you're black. You live this every single day. Silence and being comfortable is what also helps it to continue. I'm afraid to lose my job. I'm afraid to say this and defend this person because I'm gonna lose my friends. I'm gonna lose my status. People are not gonna shop at my store anymore. I'm just gonna be quiet and I'm just gonna act like this is not happening. Or I'm just gonna say, oh, it's gonna, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you, but what are you doing to fix it? You're not doing, you're part of the problem.
Well, you say, you know, don't be silent, but again, dig further. Like, what would you like to see the white community do, like, straightforward?
I would say that we can't instruct you on what to do, you know, but I'm sure that you can recognize friends and relatives and people around you that are being racist or using bigotry around the family and certain things like that, you know.
So to you, it's as simple as correcting a mentality.
I mean, it's not simple at all because
No, it's not simple.
Because I don't know what opportunity you're going to have to do anything. But if there's something that you see out there, there's an organization that's doing great work that you feel like needs to be done, that's going to help the world improve for you and your family and these people that are doing the work, I would say donate to these organizations, lend your time, volunteer, share the things that they're sharing. You know, there's different ways you can help. You can show up at protest, which is like a living petition. The amount of people that are there, that makes an impact on politicians and elected officials' decision. You could also make donations to different organizations that are doing different things, different movements that are working towards, you know, whether economic stability or anti-discrimination movements or, you know, anything like that. And thirdly, you could, in your own life, you could be an activist in your own life, in your own situation, that when things happen and something inside of you tells you that you should say something or do something about it, don't ignore it. We all experience that. We all experience that. And that's what I would say, do.
I mean, I would also say too, okay, if I had a loaf of bread, I have a whole loaf of bread, and then this person is sitting next to me and they have one slice, and they're picking off the slice and feeding 5 people. I could split up my loaf of bread and help share with these people so that they can eat as well. Stop living in fear and scarcity. Just because you are allowing somebody to get a job position, or, I mean, people need to come up like economically, not just in a social way, but if you have it, I know that everybody goes through struggle, but if you're a person that has an opportunity that you can offer somebody else to truly change their circumstances, then offer that to them. Try not to see them as what news media tells you. Try to get to know that person, because I'm not going to tell you just run out there and just start doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Get to know who these people are and how you can be of true service. But it also has to do with your heart and your mind. You know, people, they're moving out of fear. They're living off of, it's not even reality. It's like you're living off of what you see on the news. It never happened to you, never happened to somebody you know, but this is how you're treating these people. You know, so stop living in fear, stop being silent, and stop living in scarcity like you're going to lose something by giving somebody else an opportunity.
And one more thing, how far are you willing to go, you know, for that job? Like, think about it. Like, every situation come up, you're going to be like, oh, I might lose my job if this happened. I mean, what if it's something that affects someone in your family? Like, you're tied down to losing your job and not being able to help them.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think how far, and if everybody else went off of that same thing, like, we wouldn't get nothing done. Nothing would change. It would only be people who hire people making all the decisions.
Yeah. But when you talk about the scarcity aspect, it's not like you want to see any community be torn down in order for the black community to be lifted up, correct?
There's not such a thing. No
Why would we do that
community
when we
has
help
to
build
be
the
torn
community
down.
that's around now?
And that's another point. Like, for years, like some of
We've
the things
helped build
that
these
people
communities.
enjoy is built off the back of black and brown people. They can go look it up historically if they want to. You know, they'll
And
find out their
taxes.
truth.
Like, I always say this, like, imagine if you could only enjoy and experience things from your race. Can you imagine, like, how messed up of a world this be? Like, nothing invented by black people you're not able to use.
Right.
From clothing, from technology, from everything.
Right.
Like, imagine a world like that. Like, I don't want to not be able to experience other people's cultures or things that people from other cultures created. I don't want to live in a world like that, you know. So why would we want to do that? Why we want to tear down a world that we helped build, that we've been paying taxes in and financing and sending our kids to? We're the people that are the most compassionate on this planet, I would think, at least in this country, to go through so much
And still
want the title of being Americans.
I mean,
So
it's
how
just
do you-
crazy to me, because it's not, you don't have to tear anything down for black people to come up. But this racist system,
Yeah.
yes, that has to be teared down, or it has to be fixed.
And that's a mind state.
And we're talking about the infrastructural, including the mind state and
Policies.
the infrastructure, policies, laws. There's certain things that say, well, that's the law, so it's okay, but yet these people are over here suffering. No. So infrastructurally, policy-wise, yes, there's some things that need to be reconstructed in that area, but there's no community, not the Latin community, not the white community, not the Asian. There's no community that needs to be teared down for for any community to come up.
Right.
They just need to stop having their foot on our necks and allow everyone to just
So we're with the people who believe that, want to see America be great for the first time. Live up to the ideology of what America is supposed to be.
Since I've been running for office, I ask people how many of them still believe in the American dream. The American dream, that's what it offers you, something that is not really given everybody. Justice and equality for all. Is that a true statement? No, it is not a true statement. So how do we create justice and equality for all? If I work just as hard as you do, don't I deserve the same opportunity? Don't I deserve to walk in through this door? Why should I have to change my hair? Why should I have to bleach my skin? Why should I have to simulate whiteness? I just worked as hard as you. I have the same degree as you. I have the same, you get what I'm saying?
Sure.
So the message of justice equality is no longer, or if it was ever truth, I don't believe. That's not a dream, a false dream
Well,
or
I don't
so.
even know if that's the American dream, justice and equality.
Justice and equality for all. If you could pull
That's
you
our-
work hard
that's
enough,
our
the
dream.
dream is if you work hard enough, you can get it too. Pull up your bootstraps.
I thought it was the White House with the picket fence and the kids.
All of that's included in
But
it
you're
too.
saying that your American dream is justice and equality.
That's our American dream because
That's your
that's what
American
we haven't
dream.
experienced. So
And justice means in the courthouse, everybody's equal across the board,
regardless of your financial status.
regardless of your financial status, which honestly, y'all, I do feel has just as much to play as color of skin when you're standing in front of a judge. If
Definitely.
you're standing there with a lawyer that you've paid for and you're buying into the system, that helps your case.
The poverty thing, to where if you're poor, whether you're black, you're white, if you're poverty, you're gonna go through discrimination. Like the people
Right.
need. That's one thing.
Right.
But then it's like, for how many cops have you seen drove through Millage or 5 Points when you were living in that area that just circulates that area? Or I was living in Arbor Ridge. All of a sudden, cops are driving through there. What are they doing? They're scanning the license plate on the back of the cars, or so those, you find yourself in more likely of a situation to, hey, what you're doing? Come over here. Now you're asking me for my ID, and it rolls into another situation.
You
know
feel
what
like you're always under threat.
Yeah, it's like you're being criminalized. Like I'm getting arrested over and over again for a joint. Somebody up the street could be doing something worse than smoking a joint, but they're being overlooked because they're the white guy that's just standing outside, just.
So
And that's
y'all are
the-
actually a perfect couple to ask this to. One of my friends who's also a doctor and works with young kids in our community said that he saw on the Black Lives Matter website that it was saying that the nuclear family should almost essentially be dismantled, that you don't have a father and a mother in the house. I do know that y'all are a father and mother. I don't know if y'all are, all your kids are biological together or any of your personal history, but I know that y'all are raising children together. And so what's the importance in y'all's mindset of, we all know that the black father has been taken out of the black community and been thrown in prison for ridiculous reasons, and other things have happened, where it's even kind of become accepted part of culture within the black community. Not only how do we change that, but what's the importance of having the black father in the home?
It's very important, but if not in the home, more important is being in the kid's life.
That's what I mean.
Period.
Noah. That's what I mean.
And I feel like, I grew up with that being a thing, but and I grew up in communities where there were only single mothers and kids living in those communities. Part of the qualification of living in these communities and getting this help from the government was you have to be a single mother with kids. Like there was less support for families trying to stay together than there was for, a mother by herself.
Right.
And in these communities, I know that these mothers did want to be with somebody because they would have guys moving in and have to hide them from, in order not to lose their support or lose their funding or lose their apartment or lose things like that.
Right.
So if there was more support and incentive to keep those families together instead of more support for them being apart, I think that would definitely help. And then, now today, I mean, all the brothers that I know that have kids, they're taking care of those kids. They're in their lives. They're, have visitation rights. They're spending time with them. That's what I know, and I think that is important.
It's not highlighted enough. Like, it's not. There's a lot of black men out here that's handling their business as far as taking care of their family, and they still want to highlight the negative part of it. You know what I mean? But in a society, I would say, like, when historically black women have been devalued and black men have been devalued, the one thing I want to say is very important for the black community to uplift black men, to uplift them, to say good job, to say, instead of, they have it harder than, I would say, it depends, but it's easier for a black woman to navigate the system than it is for a black man, in a sense. You know what I mean? Because they're targeted and automatically as criminal or a certain particular thing.
Yeah.
So I would say that, the perspective that America has, the way they look at a black man, it needs to stop.
White people who are very well intended, and I really think that they have, from what I can tell, even people I know on a personal basis, would have good hearts. They do sometimes, some of them will say, my family didn't do this. I didn't do what white people are being accused of. Now, in certain situations, we see generational, without question, there's white families and there's white systematic injustices towards minorities. We're definitely both in agreement with that. What do you say to people whose white families, like, I have nothing but civil rights lawyers in my family, down in Alabama of all places, right? So they're helping Jews, they're helping black people, they're helping everybody. And so, like, but nobody's gonna look at them any different than any other white person, once again, whether positive or negative. So what do you say to the black community, as far as, like, or to the white community who feels sometimes generalized with these slave owners, that they had nothing to do with?
I mean, it's our educational system that failed us in that sense, because when they teach us about these things, they give the black students the perspective that all white people had slaves.
All white people
so
had
it's
slaves.
our education system, and then
So
and then, like, that's how we've been taught. Like, somewhere in life, if you're lucky, you learn that history, that's not what it was.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, that's what the white teachers taught us.
And it's like, but white people still benefited. Even if your family did not own slaves, you still benefited off of slavery, and you still benefit off of it today.
So it may not have been slavery, but there was a period of time where there was, black codes and laws that was written to stop black people from owning property and coming up, and designed to build a white middle class. So you have to just know history. Like, there's been things done strategically to try to hold, a race of people back.
So, Mokah, when you say...
and one more thing, let me say this.
Please.
Imagine after the Civil War, when the country was about to be divided.
Yeah.
And, the war was over, and, agreements was being made by the Confederates and the Union to try to come together. There was a period of time where a lot of these Confederate sympathists got into D.C. and got into office and started passing policies and laws and stuff. So you're talking about people who were willing to commit treason against the country now ending up in powerful positions in the country, regardless of what they were trying to do, and now passing policies, of course, to support their old South, or things that they're trying to do in the South. So that's the stuff that we've been fighting, still constantly fighting that old guard in the laws that they put in place to try to have that equity and try to have that fairness in society.
So how important is it to y'all symbolically to see the monuments removed or military bases renamed and stuff like that have any resemblance to the Confederacy?
I mean, as far as, I just think that for far too long, historically, like, I don't even know if, like, even the full white community knows the full history, and they're just defending something because that's what it is. You know what I mean? You're not, when I myself went back and and read the South, the the Bill of Rights that they created and how they were trying to separate the North and the South. And I'm like, how can people really truly support this and say it's okay, and don't understand that you don't know your history, you're not looking deep enough and far enough. For me, I feel like those monuments have to go. I feel like the monuments and the symbolism, like we're surrounded by statutes, streets names that's named after slave
schools.
Owners that own
majority black schools with Confederate names, you know.
Right.
And it's not just like, it's like if you think that somebody just had 100 slaves and was just nice to all of them, some families are rich or benefited today, still to this day, because of what happened way back then. It's not necessarily you or the person that was cracking the whip, but maybe your grandfather, great-grandfather that had that field. Or this one lady tried to break it down to another white lady like this. She said, in Atlanta, Georgia, at one point in time, you know, dealing with the finances and being able to buy property, her father was able to buy like a large portion around where the arena is now. She's benefiting off of that today. She's living off of that. That's why she's able to live comfortably.
Right.
If a black person went in and tried to get the same loan for that same property around that period of time, they weren't getting that.
Right.
They weren't, so why didn't they have the equal access to that land, to buy the land, to even be able to, you know, come up off of it generations wise? So there's generational things that were put in place where you're whether it's the way this is written in the language in the law, because right now it's still illegal, where some places they can turn me down from not getting a job because I have dreads in my hair because it's in the 13th Amendment.
So your question was specifically about the monument and how we felt about moving the monument. I think it makes a statement for those cities or corporations or industries that allow the Confederate flag and the monuments and different things like that. It's more of a statement of who we're dealing with, you know, when they make the decision to leave that or not leave that. And it's more of a statement for our city if they decide to leave that after its citizens and, you know, have requested that. You know, the taxpayers have requested that. Like, why would you not do what we're requesting? And you know what type of history this represents, and you know what type of pride that people coming into this town that are sympathists for these type of things, white supremacy, you know what type of pride that gives them, you know, to see this in the middle of our downtown. This is their town.
What about people who say it's a erasing of history?
How is it an erasing of history? Like, my people are not gonna forget that we were slaves. Who's gonna forget? Like,
they're not gonna forget that they fought the war and
this
the
one,
Confederate
I mean,
uncle
there's
and grandfather. They're not gonna forget that.
There's
like,
enough buildings at UGA. There's enough schools, memorabiliums, museums, like, and like, why do we want to remember that? Like, what is that to remember? That you lost a war? That these wasn't like significant to Southern culture. They were significant to the war, to the fight for slavery.
the people that lost.
You know, did this stuff throughout your lives make y'all upset to see Confederate type of symbol?
No, this is a
like
history that is this is a history that we're covered in and don't even really know. Like I said, there are schools. Like, do you really think that, like, in Orlando, there's a middle school called Robert E. Lee?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you 90% of those people at that school or their parents have no idea who Robert E. Lee is. You know, we just knew he was some great war general or something. You know what I'm saying? That's it. But if people knew a lot of the things that was going around them and what they were surrounded by and the symbolism, you know, which is very powerful mentally, I don't think they'll be a part. I don't think they'll be a part or participate in as many of those things as. So it's like Al Qaeda was to come in, right after 9/11. The Taliban's were to come in and start saying that whatever America was saying, the reason why they did that was not true. This is the reason why we did this, and they start putting up monuments to everybody that died, you know, in their war against America, putting them up right on America's soil, you know, where the victims' families have to live at.
Right.
I think if people would understand that, a lot of people would be against that. But why the people who have fought in wars with them, did free labor for the country, why the descendants of those people, you know, can't get some simple some simple requests like remove this? And it's not just those people. It's people in your community asking for these things to be removed. So
So,
It's just time that history is owned and corrected, and there wasn't a war of northern aggression. There was a civil war
Right.
where one side was fighting for keeping the culture the way it was, which was the economic system of slavery.
Yep.
And one was afraid that that system wasn't going to allow the country to flourish because there was too much money being made down here and trying to bring the country together so that it can be a country.
do y'all feel in any way that there's a resistance within the black community to accept any of the programs that are being offered by government and others to uplift out of the community itself, or
Resistance? It's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
It's a lack of trust. It's like you've never come, if any time that you've seen, even like in the
government workers.
in the I would say the poor areas or disenfranchised areas, poverty areas. If you ever seen a white person come in that community, how many times was it to help you, to genuinely help you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a serious distrust, a lack of distrust, and it's almost like, let me just stay over here and try to figure this out myself because they don't mean me no well. So until people can, like, because even you see the election times, people come around, knock on doors saying they want to do this, vote for me. And then after election, you don't never see them come again, and nothing changes.
And you've been in too many situations where what you don't know has been used against you.
Mm-hmm.
So when people that come off like they know more than you are trying to talk to you and they're asking you all these questions about you, and you don't know really what their intent is, it's just hard to trust them. Like,
So how do you think it's best to bridge the communities to where we build this kind of trust that's lacking?
It's gonna take years.
you can't just come around during these times where you're trying to help. You have to build trust, like in any relationship. Like, you're not gonna meet somebody and they're just gonna let you take their kid with them. You know what I'm saying? You have to build trust. Like, this is no different. The problem is, this is a job for these people,
Right.
and they get off at 5 o'clock.
And
you
that's
understand what I'm
it.
saying? So that's the problem right there. Like, they're getting paid to do this, and sometimes the lack of compassion in your communication, the lack of certain things, the way you view these people honestly comes out in the way you communicate with them.
Do you feel like I think defunding the police is a terrible term, but like refunding them in a different way or whatever.
How about even better, audit them
But I love the fact
before you make any corrections. How about audit them and see how things are working right now?
Make it. But I also said we should redistribute the funds.
Yeah,
And
redistributing
don't say defund, because it's like
You're
it just
actually
sound
adding
like
to their arsenal. You're adding to their tool bag.
redistribute.
You're helping them with their job, actually.
Right.
That's why I say
Because
audit.
most
Yeah.
police probably do have a good-hearted intention and want to see well for their community.
So we can look at the budget through an audit, and we can tell where it's effective and where it's not not effective, and just be able to move funds around like that or add where it's needed. So
But my question to you, Noah, is do you feel that that's a big step in gaining trust between the black community and government or white community or cops, like however, wherever this trust is needing to be built, is reforming the police a huge step in that?
Yeah, it's
for
a
as
huge
police
step.
and community relations, yes.
Yeah, the police officers,
That's
they don't
one issue in
approach
itself.
you. I can't speak for what it's like for a white woman or for a white man.
Yeah.
But they don't
Or all
approach you
officers.
like they're, no. Living in my world, I can't even tell you there's one officer, okay? There's one officer that surprised me. But when they pull you over, they don't approach you like you're a human being that just made a mistake. They approach you, you feel like you're going to be arrested. The way they talk to you, they dehumanize you. They stand over you with a certain sense of authority, and you can't even ask a question, or else you can end up in handcuffs. This is real for me. You get what I'm saying? So if they want to change that, they have to be able to build better relationships. I know that they go from call to call. They don't know who they're going to encounter with, but it seems like when they're dealing with a black person, it's almost you're guilty before innocent. They're treating as if you committed a crime. They don't greet you in a way like you're supposed to be here to protect and serve. That is not how you're approaching me. That's not how it is. You're approaching me as if I'm a criminal and you need to interrogate me, or I'm doing something wrong, or it just leads on to one thing to the next, you know. So
What
they
is
have to
sorry?
they have to change the way that they approach minorities and be more and understand that they're being trained to look at people a certain way.
Yeah.
And they have to change that training and perspective, and maybe they need to break up units. Maybe these units over here, you know, you might need to go at this particular people or community, drugs, gangs, I don't know, whatever. You might need to have a particular unit that deals like that. But everyday officers, you're pulling somebody over for a traffic violation and you're acting like I committed a crime?
Right.
I don't need that.
Right. Mokah, would it surprise you to know that a lot of people in the white community deal with that same attitude from the police officers? Like, especially among like the hippie community or anywhere around music festivals, things like that, that we're treated in the exact same disregard. You know, that's why there is such a hippie protest against police since the 60s. You know, I mean, Nixon was very clear who he was coming for. He wanted the open-minded and any minority. And the open-minded essentially meant anybody who was smoking marijuana. I've always felt that that's the one issue that really unites every tribe on earth. And every family is affected by it one way or another, by the criminality of marijuana. Do y'all see that as something that needs to happen, the decriminalization, in order to take one of the big boots off of the black community's neck?
Oh, definitely. I definitely criminalizing anything that is, you know, they look at opioid and they don't criminalize you in the sense of being an opioid user. They try to get you help or, you know, whatever the situation is. But someone can, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm not saying it's the same thing, my dear. What I'm saying is someone can, they can receive harsher penalty for having a joint and be thrown in jail, you know what I mean, for a joint, as opposed to saying, is there another alternative? And if you look at the stats, a lot of the stats are dealing with marijuana is dealing with African American people that are being locked up, and it's not necessarily I'm selling it. You know what I mean? You could be using it and have some of it on it, and it just starts from there.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, alcohol has a strong, like if you drink too much, you drink and you drive, and you can kill somebody. If you drink too much, you can be very destructive. What is the difference? You know, in a sense, why is alcohol okay and cigarettes okay, but weed is something that they use to criminalize people for, and it's recreational just like those two.
Right.
And I would say, like, you asked her, would she be surprised with that, you know, that people get that treatment? I mean, America's prison population is one of the biggest in the world, whereas, you know, actual people from your population being locked up by his own country. So with that period, we know it has to be affecting everybody. But then for African Americans to be the biggest, you know, the small percentage of America's population, 13%, that make up 40 to 50%, if not more, of the prison population.
Right.
Then that's even the worst problem right there.
Right.
And it's creating a message. We're talking about, you could say that number, but I'm almost sure that more than half of those people are victimless crimes that they're locked up for.
Right.
And that nuance is not being put out there. It's just like, you know, this percentage of African Americans are locked up, this percentage of African Americans are doing this. But there's some nuances in those statistics that tell a bigger story and a deeper story that are not being mentioned, and people are just riding with the blanket statement, you know. And yeah, so the situation, you know, all the way around, it's a bad situation. There's so many layers for us coming together. Like you said, it's not just happening, you know, from the police acting like that, for as, you know, militarized and acting like they're your authority figure instead of, you know, they're public servants. That's a bad thing, man. And, you know, even lawyers are coming out of school sometimes, you know, with this us against them mentality. And no career that's serving the public should have that mentality of us against them. It should be, how can I serve? It should be from a restorative approach and not always just a punitive approach, you know?
Right.
I mean, I even think about it in a sense like, you know, would I be surprised? No. But how many of them end up being arrested? That's what I want to think about, because I've seen situations go from this to that, and to where they might give somebody else a second chance.
Right.
You know, they're still dealing with you, but they might let that person go. But this person right here, you're getting arrested tonight. You know what I mean? So I just wonder. I just feel like the approach has to be different, and it's just so militarized, and it's becoming more in that direction as opposed to being like a social responder. And people, I do understand that there are bad people out there, but on 100%, you know, I think 80% of the people really just want to live and not commit crimes and kill people, you know, or hurt people.
Right.
So you have to figure out how to deal with the 20%, you know,
and not
and
shake
not
up the
80%. Yeah.
And like you said, we're a social responder. You think that's a huge step to do that?
Yeah.
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 Is there anything that y'all would want people to know in general about where y'all coming from as people, as an organization, as community leaders here in Athens?
I would say we're always here to talk to. You don't have to believe what this person tells you about us. You know, 9 times out of 10 when that happened, that person have never even sat and talked to us. They just formulated opinion. So, you know, if you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, I would say reach out to us, email us, ask us to try to find out what our intentions are. I know it can look like anything coming from where you're looking from, and, you know, depending on your background and your experience dealing with people, but we're really coming from the heart. We're genuine people. The work that we do is because we plan on living in this community, raising our kids in this community. So we feel like if you're planning on doing that, you should contribute to the community. And that's pretty much why we do what we do.
How about you, Mokah?
I would just say people have to step out their comfort zone. I'm gonna keep saying that until people fully, you know, when I say out your comfort zone, if you find yourself saying, well, blue lives matter too, or you find yourself saying, well, my family didn't own any slaves, or you find yourself looking around and you don't have any minority friends, or your kids don't have any minority friends, you truly don't really understand. And you need to step out your comfort zone, and you need to spend time around people, like you said, like once 2 different people start engaging in different ways, you'll be like, oh, okay, well, now I understand why they might think this way, act this way, why they feel like this. So people really, when I say comfort zone, step outside your comfort zone, not just for one day and you feel good and you pat yourself on your back. You have to do it continuously, because for me to do this work and for me to try to be peaceful and try to change, I'm continuously engaging with people that I might traditionally wouldn't engage with, in order for me to get used to it and for me to be able to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And last, black people, people of color, black and brown people are not homogeneous. We all think we have different interests. We think different,
Yeah.
just like anybody else. We're not all locked into feeling this way and thinking that way or wanting the same things.
Right.
Right. And that leads me to my last question for y'all. On the Black Lives Matter movement, there's a lot of splinters to it. Like, it kind of leads into like socialism on some degrees. It leads into some violence on other degrees. It leads into good protest on other degrees. It seems like there's a lot of rhymes in the reason. And I know for sure the white community is having a really hard time figuring out Black Lives Matter.
There's nothing to figure out. Just Black Lives Matter.
Well, I mean
know
the
there's
movement
different.
itself.
There are different
Let me
movements.
explain one thing, then I'll let you
Okay,
talk.
go ahead.
There is an organization called Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Every time you hear Black Lives Matter, it's not that organization.
Right.
So I think that's one of the big confusions.
Right.
Like, this is a hashtag. This is something that people say because they're all, you know, we're working towards the same thing. People seeing what black people are going through behind scenes, dealing with policies, dealing with law enforcement, dealing with different things. And that statement, Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
is what a lot of people are using.
What does the organization mean to you, Noah?
I mean, the organization,
Black liberation.
I'm not affiliated with the organization.
Uh-huh.
I'm affiliated with the people.
Yes.
And that's what I'm more concerned about. I can tell you what the people mean to me, but what that particular organization mean to me,
Yeah.
I haven't formulated an opinion about that. But I say Black Lives Matter because I know what that means, and it doesn't mean no one else matters. It's
Right.
highlighting what's going on in the country currently with Black lives, dealing with injustices and wrongful deaths and things like that. So I haven't investigated the organization.
I've looked some into the organization, at least the Atlanta branch.
Yeah.
And it's Black liberation. It's to keep forefront the issues that are at disadvantage for Black people. So our branch, we call it Justice for Black Lives, because we're focused on the policy, like the bills and different things, and we don't want to just get caught up in just the hashtag of Black Lives Matter. But my issue right now is why everybody's so focused on Black lives, whether to tear it down, the organization or the meaning that it's like every time Black people have something that they use to empower themselves, it has to be painted as a negative thing. It has to have negative, it's just this battle between Black lives, blue lives, all lives. It's like, come on, y'all know what people are trying to say, and you understand that when they had when there was hippies around and people were doing their thing, there was groups that were more violent, there was groups that were more peaceful, there was groups that were into music and arts, but it wasn't like this whole thing of criminalizing or demonizing an entire group or movement because of it. If you really, all you got to think about is just Black Lives Matters. How do you want to contribute to that? If you believe that Black people have been disadvantaged over years, whether in policy, economic, politically, how can you help advance that? That's it. The nuances.
But I know nothing negative about the organization,
Right.
But I just wanted to clarify that.
And then
because
is there any tie between Black Lives Matters and Antifa?
I have
No idea.
nothing. There's
I know on that
nothing.
level.
We're not in the inside behind scenes, but there's nothing that I've seen. But they're going to try to tie it to anything negative to try to make it seem like Antifa, from my understanding, is a whole nother group. You understand?
Yeah.
So now they're part of Black Lives. Same thing with the Black Panther. When they were back doing their thing back in the day, they were trying to help liberate Black people, especially those in poverty. And it's like, if they're being put in areas terrorists and this and that, and it's just like, come on, it's like every time a powerful organization that is strong and vocal about Black lives, Black liberation, Black justice, Black power, black, they don't want it. That's scary, isn't it? I bet so many people are on here right now, oh whoa, why can't we empower that and just leave that as it is, knowing that there's a disadvantage has occurred? You have to simulate whiteness to make white people feel comfortable in order for you to move forward, or for you to not demonize a particular organization.
I mean, that question about Antifa can be anywhere. I mean, I don't think individuals can join how many groups they want to join. Even they can be politicians too and be in Antifa.
You know what I'm saying?
Or supporting Antifa, like that can be anywhere.
Yeah. And I swear this is the last one. Do y'all feel there is a difference between like Mike Brown, which oddly enough is where Black Lives Matter movement began, the organization itself and the movement, and say like Trayvon Martin or Tamir Rice, John Crawford? Do you feel that there's a difference between a guy that was physically fighting with a cop versus these other guys that were shot just down by a cop doing absolutely nothing?
I don't feel there's a difference, because there was a point of no need for deadly force. You can see that in all those situations where there was opportunity for that.
Right.
And that's what we're asking for. Don't take a life, make it so worthless that, like the situation at Wendy's in Atlanta, when someone is obviously no threat anymore, that you feel like you can kill them, and we don't feel like that should be a thing in no situation. Like, if your life is at threat in that moment, there's ways of telling that you did what you had to do and it was self-defense in that moment, But if the threat, I think even if you're a homeowner and someone broke in your house and they're running out of your yard, I don't think you can shoot to kill them.
Not allowed.
So
I don't think
that's all we're saying. That's all we're saying.
And did you honestly feel this way your entire lives? Like feeling like that you're kind of being hunted to that degree, to that a cop would just indiscriminately kill you to kill you?
I mean, to be honest with you, it was like walking through, like before I was awoken, it was behave so I don't get killed. It was behave so I don't get arrested. It was behave. It's like the people are taking advantage of you and you're allowing it because you don't want to draw attention to yourself, because if an officer come over here, he's most likely not going to help you. He's going to arrest you. So this is what I'm walking through my whole life living. I'm in a store. I'm not doing anything wrong, but you're following me, harassing me like I'm going to steal something, or just different incidents. And you just let it roll off your back to the point it becomes norm. And you're walking in this world on eggshells and don't even realize it. And then you get tired. Some people get tired, or they just keep behaving and just keep being quiet so they can stay under the radar. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now I'm woke.
What woke you, Mokah, to the point that you wouldn't just walk on eggshells anymore?
I mean, to be honest, after the Trayvon Martin is the first one that shook me up, but I still felt helpless. You know what I mean? But after living in Athens and the incident with the bar, I thought that was just bold, so it was surprisingly, that's what made me tired. Like, you're like, this is it, I'm done. You know what I mean? You're gonna create a drink called Niggerita? Like, really? In this time and age? So surprisingly, that's what really triggered me to say I'm done, because no matter how we play the game, no matter how polite, nice we try to be, this is going to happen forever. And they're killing us. They're killing us, they're harassing us, they're killing us, and they're blocking us out of the process.
So for me, growing up, no, I didn't feel like I was going to get killed by the police. But what I did, I was raised with the awareness that feeling like definitely anything can happen. Like, even trying to call them for something that would be a necessary reason could end up turning to where other people are being arrested. You're finding out something else you might have thought was right is wrong, and now you're caught up in this situation with them. So I did grow up like that, and I have growing up having my rights violated, meaning being searched, having to empty my pockets, having to do things like that just because they think that we're doing something wrong. So I grew up with those situations.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for your time.
I'm
I
like,
really
woo,
appreciate
side-eye.
having a conversation with you today and showing up for this. And you have a very important voice for our community. I hope y'all keep on with what you're doing. And yeah, very grateful for both of you.
Thank you for taking the time, and I hope that this turned out well.
Yeah,
What is the interview about?
It's honestly just to have communication with any and all perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I find that we need more than anything in today's time is to understand where everybody's kind of coming from in general. So I just recently interviewed Jesse Hull to be commissioner, right? Because a lot of people don't understand his point of view in life, around town. They're not used to a commissioner that has such a liberal minded for a liberal town, right? He actually, and so my perspective here is, on a personal basis, I was raised Jewish, and I'm the only white guy that goes to Barber Creek, an all African American Baptist church down on 316, right? And they've been there since slavery times, essentially. It's 150 years old. And the main deacon there, when I started going there, my keyboardist for my band, Lions, his name's Damien, he started playing keyboards in that church. And he was like, man, you're gonna like it, this place, come check it out. Next thing I know, I'm getting baptized. It was powerful. And Pastor David, who's been the pastor there for a long time, is one of the most amazing people you can just meet in life. And Deacon Smith, who just passed away last year, was a police officer here in Athens. He was one of the original bike cops downtown. And growing up, I came here in '91 in college, and I was scared to death of this man. As soon as you see this guy's presence, he was such an intimidating cop. Well, as soon as I walk into the church and he's singing at the top, same force he used on the streets in a peaceful way, but in a powerful way, was the same force that he was using inside the church. In a singing, bringing everybody to God, bringing everybody to the same circle. And I was raised by a military father, so it didn't surprise me to see the heart in somebody who has that mindset, right? So how do we as a community, because Athens is a prime place to bring all the voices together, because everybody's listening. Everybody wants to connect all the voices, but yet everybody doesn't understand everybody's voices. So my whole intention here is for it to be an open forum for y'all to say whatever you want to say, in answering some questions that almost that sometimes might make me even uncomfortable asking. But I have the intention of telling you the whole preface of who I am as a person, so you know where my heart is. But there's questions that say, for no lack of better words, that the white community would love to hear. They want to know where Black community comes from, right? And I see y'all as people that are trying to bridge all community. And so that's why I just want to give y'all that voice. I have my own ways of putting out voice in my Facebook pages. Y'all have your own way. And so my intention is for it to be that in our ways that we can get out what y'all's voice would be, with some questions that everybody has. And that's actually somehow I came up with my questions, was with the influence of asking people that are from deans at UGA campus, to doctors that just work in the normal public school systems, to people that work in their houses, people that don't have jobs. These questions combine from all people and from a lot of thought. So
Sounds interesting.
if y'all are down with it.